Welcome back to the Great Primeval Show. I am the Ark Minister, and I am joined by Ancient Realms and Hodgepodge. Today we'll be breaking down Episode 2 of Primeval Series 2, also known as Mealworms Indeed in North America,
Der Nebel
in Germany, and
Invasion
in France. Written by Adrian Hodges and directed by Andrew Gunn.
This episode starts out with the only time we see Helen's travels alone through the anomalies. Shame we don't get any expansion on this in other episodes, as this is very underrated. The vocals are a key theme within this music and appear to serve as a secondary Helen's theme for Series 2, as a similar track is played later on in the series. Volcano, pterosaurs, and an arid desert environment. A very stereotypical Mesozoic scene, but works really well. It's not confirmed, but thought that this is the same desert that the raptors reside in and that Cutter and Stephen visited in the previous episode. As speculated by Nick last episode, it is assumed that this device that Helen uses is some form of radio anomaly detector. Really cool to see that, once again, Cutter was right.
Of course I was right.
Though it didn't appear as though Helen had a detector in Series 1, nor does she have it in later episodes. Maybe we're just overthinking this. After finding some water, Helen spies some
eggs,
and thus begins the continued rivalry between Helen and pterosaurs. They never specify what this pterosaur is, but it uses the same model and sounds as the Pteranodon from Series 1, so The Pteranodon manages to land a hit on Helen, but not before it also gets its wing sliced by her knife. It appears that Helen deliberately cuts her leg here so she can go and get sympathy from Stephen, who she presumably knows how to get back to fairly easily. Otherwise, she's gonna be limping around the desert for a while. Her scream echoes hauntingly through the desert, and we cut to the titles. I wonder if these screams were actually recorded by Juliet Aubrey.
We rejoin Cutter in the Ark, fixated on Claudia Brown's new doppelganger. The distorted reality seeps back in as Cutter hears echoes of Lester during the first meeting of Jenny, before fully flushing back. The style of directing changes to high contrast, unfocused shots, and the snap flashes of Claudia are in a sepia tone to differentiate the realities, all taken from Series 1 Episode 1, and all the characters' voices echoing throughout. Lester informs the team about Jenny's new position in the Ark. Stephen interjects, but hang on, he was completely absent in Series 2 Episode 1, and has suddenly appeared. Cutter babbles on about Claudia Brown, somewhat scaring Jenny, but luckily Connor cuts in. Interesting to see Connor being the more rational one of the pair here. Cutter explains to Connor that Jenny is in fact Claudia Brown, to which Connor agrees, but also states that he's never seen her before now, further confirming the timeline change. Connor also asks Cutter to keep a lid on the Claudia stuff until he can figure out what's going on. It seems like Jenny was hired without being informed about the job. Well, it is highly classified information, so not like you can advertise Dinosaur Hunter.
It's my life's ambition to fight dinosaurs, save the world.
Keeping the public ignorant is the government's top priority.
Nicely put, Leek.
Did Lester just compliment Leek? Leek takes Jenny to the human resources for hiring.
Classy. Very classy.
And Cutter snaps back into reality.
Terry Red Sox enters his office to a music montage. Typical douche boss to his employees.
Nothing goes wrong today. And I mean nothing.
Yeah, about that. The build-up to the anomaly opening is one of the most interesting and captivating shots in this series, as we zoom through the air vents, presumably all CGI. This hints at the solution to the episode. No, not the stepladder! This is the first time we see an anomaly opening in full view, and it is glorious. Look at all that dry ice with the disgusting yellow tint. Also, what's the heavy breathing sound here? Note that the anomaly is next to the thermostat, which foreshadows how the fog is cleared at the end of the episode. The worm moves in front of the janitor like a shark in water, very Jaws-esque. After falling over and getting pulled forward, the janitor bites the dust, or rather, fog. After the Wilhelm scream, he makes the exact same screams as the security guard in Episode 1. Money is more important to Terry than escaping when the fire alarm goes off. Note that Mr. Nagata is played by Togo Agawa, the go-to Japanese actor in the United Kingdom. As the building is evacuated by firefighters, we get one of the most cheesy scenes in all of the show, as the fire chief disappears into the fog like Batman. I'm Batman, fireman. You can actually see his shadow as he crouches down here to give the illusion of disappearing. What exactly happened here? Did a worm carefully pull him back by his head? We later see one do this to Connor, but you could still hear him, so... Huh? The office building was filmed at Exchange Tower in Harbour Exchange Square in the Isle of Dogs, and we reveal where the interior was filmed later.
As Jenny is shown around the Ark by the human resources, Cutter pitches the anomaly detector idea to Lester and Leek in his office.
And you can build a machine that detects this interference?
Yes, it's the same as trying to track down a pirate radio station.
It's heavy.
We then get the best scene of the episode. Leek touches Lester's chair without permission. As Cutter asks for Connor to build it, note that Leek was involved with its creation, as this becomes a factor later. Also, I love how Leek rolls his eyes when Cutter says this.
I think this is something we should consider, sir. Seems to be our most significant breakthrough to date.
Yes, I do understand the implications, Leek.
Meanwhile, Terry gets wormed. Ah, video stores, how we miss you.
What happened to Blockbuster?
The movies The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Holiday, and Hostile are mentioned here. It's here where we're introduced to another main character for Series 2, Caroline Steele. She just kind of walks up to Connor and comments on his choice of movie. So casual.
Have you seen this one?
It's not bad. I preferred the original.
Well, originals are usually better.
Yeah, I don't really feel like horror tonight. I feel like something a bit more...
Erotic? Romantic?
Keep it in your pants, Connor. It seems that despite Abby's guidance in Series 1 Episode 6, Connor is still not great with women. I like how despite this, he isn't remotely suspicious in any way.
I love to think Helen was just sitting here on her own, possibly for hours, perfecting her pose for when Stephen walked in. She even left a trail of blood. Stephen is a good tracker after all. Also, how did she get in? Did Stephen leave the door unlocked? Did she pick the lock with a hairpin? Did she call a locksmith? Is she a locksmith?
Getting eggs for breakfast wasn't so easy in the Cretaceous.
I'm exhausted.
No, Stephen, I need to sleep. I mean, decent night's sleep without anything trying to eat me.
You say that like Stephen won't. Helen apologises for revealing their affair, and the way Stephen calls her out is perfect. Their shared history is so apparent. Cutter walks to confront Jenny, but is interrupted by Leek. Cock-blocked again. Leek reports a new anomaly alert.
Creature.
We visit Abby's flat, filmed in a new location, but it could be the same flat from Series 1. Nice to see that despite the tiny cages Abby keeps her reptiles in, she does at least take them out sometimes.
Abby? This is Caroline.
Wow.
Thus begins the love triangle between Abby, Connor and Caroline.
Hi. What is that thing?
Also the rivalry between Rex and Caroline begins. Rex, having natural animal instincts, can instantly tell that Caroline is not to be trusted, and does this to show the audience. However, before Connor can get more acquainted with Caroline, an anomaly alert sends him and Abby back to the Ark.
Yep. We have pens.
Are you sure about that? Because I would have thought the anomalies had taken them all by this point.
Here's my number. Call me.
Helen makes herself comfortable in Stephen's bed. Perhaps too comfortable. Note all the scars on her body, hence her line about a good night's sleep without something trying to eat her. Helen tries to seed some doubt in Stephen's mind about Cutter. She continues to do this over the rest of the series.
When you come by the time I get back.
Stephen is still not too comfortable with Helen being here just yet, however, but...
Things can change.
Can you stop doing that, please?
Doing what?
Staring at me.
Cutter can't help but stare at this woman who in his mind is still Claudia Brown. Jenny of course has no idea what he's up to or thinking.
Can you ask all your men to withdraw until I give you the all clear? What? So I want all these people back about half a mile.
Not 1 minute in and Jenny keeps the firefighters back and lets the team get on with the work, already showing how well suited she is for this job, despite not believing in any of it yet. Stephen arrives and plays off anything going on when Cutter questions him for being late. Helen's probably smirking in his apartment right now.
Where are you going? What am I supposed to do?
You'll think of something.
Stephen and Cutter go up the stairs. Note the big numbers on each level and how the logistics of travelling between each floor makes little sense in this episode. The characters will go up and down this building in a very convoluted way. More on this later. They attempt to head into the office.
Smells like something rotting.
Oh, yeah. There's no need for that. This stuff really smells.
I know, it smells like something's died. What an awful pong.
Yeah, there's so many good clips we didn't know which one to pick, so we just threw them all in here. This apparent odour sets the pair back for a few seconds until they hear shouting from the trapped firefighter and rush in to rescue her. Such noble heroes.
There's something inside the fog.
We get our first proper look at the worms, and boy are they phallic.
Here. Do your job.
Cutter, I don't think chopping down prehistoric worms with an axe is in the firefighter job description. The three escape the corridor and watch as one of the attacking worms suffocates outside the fog. This is how they discover its key weakness.
So, this is another fictional creature-ish. The Precambrian fogworms are thought to be partly based on the genus Otoya, a possible ancient relative of a group of marine invertebrates called the priapulids, or by their common name, penis worms. I say they're only partly based on them, as not only was Otoya from the Cambrian period and not the Precambrian, it was also an aquatic animal, as no life is known to have existed on land at this time. These animals, however, on top of the typical primeval treatment of being made much larger, are clearly terrestrial and can only breathe the sulphurous fog, as they lived in an age before the Earth's atmosphere had been enriched with oxygen. I can't think of how or why an animal would be able to breathe anything other than oxygen. The reason that they live inside the fog as opposed to underwater is unclear, as nothing is currently known to have lived fully terrestrially prior to the Silurian period. It is likely part of the partially dropped plotline of Cutter noticing the timeline changing in subtle ways. These animals appear to have a parasitic juvenile stage, suggesting there were indeed other animals on land at the time for the worms to use as hosts. They look surprisingly like the parasite from Series 1, Episode 4. Interestingly, the worms appear to be blind, as we later see one of them unable to see Stephen right in front of it. He then distracts them by throwing his watch, and they react to the sound of it hitting the floor. So perhaps they hunt using sound.
Don't move. Can't see us if we don't move.
The baby worms are practical effects with very obvious rotating motors in their tails. Definitely not the best effects in the show, but also not the worst. The most interesting thing about these things are the implications of their home time period. The worms also bear a striking resemblance to the Carnictis worms from Peter Jackson's King Kong from 2005. Darren Hawley was the concept artist for the creatures in both King Kong and Primeval, so perhaps it's no surprise they're so similar. Cutter and Stephen bet.
Helen says I get there first.
Yeah, alright.
I want to win the bet I had with the crew.
The lift is also full of the fog and of the worms, so Cutter calls a retreat before Stephen vanishes into thin, foggy air, just like the first firefighter.
This is the latest in high-tech weaponry. There's equipment here that make James Bond cry with envy.
Now it's leak. Follow the leak.
When you think about it, he does feel a bit like a Bond villain. Slightly eccentric and over-the-top plans, as we'll find out. Spoilers? Avi gets the idea to head to a garden centre to get leaf blowers. Hopefully the Ark pays for them.
Here comes the Crimson Chin.
I know you, don't I?
I work here. Probably seen me around.
It's the cleaner! I'd recognise that chin anywhere. Now he's dressed as a Special Forces soldier, which plants seeds of doubt about whether Lester is involved in spying on the team. Connor recognises him immediately, but Abby is strangely dismissive here.
Stephen distracts the worms with his watch and enters the lift shaft.
Yeah, it's me.
Where are you?
How did he get phone service in there? Jenny grows impatient and demands to be involved.
I'm tired of this. I want to know what's going on, and quite frankly, you can't stop me.
All right. You take the stairs to the 12th floor, and I'll meet you there. Now, don't use the lifts. I'll repeat that for you. Don't use the lifts.
Not realising the danger of the situation, Jenny foolishly takes the lift. As Jenny heads up the shaft in the lift, Stephen is above her, gripping onto the ladder of the tall shaft, and is about to be squashed in the shaft as Jenny ascends the shaft. God, I'm going to need a cold shower at this rate.
Hands up, Jedi.
Luckily, the lift stops just before injuring Stephen's legs, again. So Jenny almost killed one of her team members on her first day on the job. To be fair though, she was never given much information about what she's doing. It's a very hands-on job compared to what she's likely used to. Jenny gets attacked by one of the worms, so Cutter has to mount a daring rescue mission with a samurai sword. In the behind the scenes, Dougie mentioned that he didn't want his character to be particularly good with weapons like this, which makes sense.
The next time I say take the stairs, you take the stairs.
Maybe you should listen to men in the future, Jenny? This also marks Jenny's only creature kill.
Watch where you're swinging that thing!
It's not like you're going to get much use out of it anyway. Sorry, Nick.
Everything was fine until you showed up!
This has two meanings, the obvious being Jenny disobeying orders and needing rescuing, but also Cutter's relationship with Claudia being complicated by Jenny replacing her.
It's all true. Creatures. Dinosaurs.
It's not a dinosaur. It's literally as far from a dinosaur as could possibly be without being in a separate kingdom of life. It's a goddamn worm! Abby and Connor turn up with leaf blowers and mention it's a Friday. Meanwhile, Stephen exits the lift shaft and arms himself with a pen. Oh, thank God those people got the Nagata beer deal. I was so invested in that plotline. Terry Red Sox died for it after all. Shelley and not Terry escape and leave the deceased Terry as the fog clears and our dashing heroes arrive.
Follow me. Whatever you do, stay out of the fog.
What are those things?
They're worms. They're just a little bit less friendly than the ones in your garden. I think we're alright now.
Here a worm tries to eat Connor, which is kinda hilarious but also very grotesque. This is reminiscent to the scene in 2005 King Kong where Lumpy gets his undeserved fate. Some great CGI interaction here. Also, how is this worm floating in the stairwell? And how is it not suffocating outside the fog? Thankfully, Cutter makes use of his newfound weapon of choice in this episode and slices the worm before Connor gets digested.
It could have been worse. Man, it could have been a lot worse.
It could have been worse, John. A lot worse.
Funny. I hope someone came and took that head away because Connor just leaves it there. Jenny is once again shown to cover up for the team, which is already a very useful quality for them.
Caroline's number.
He did a better job washing off her number than the actual goo. The universe is trying to tell you something, Connor. For some reason, the team who were up near the 12th floor decided to descend to the ground floor to formulate a plan to go up to the 15th floor. I'm no mathematician, but that just seems so unnecessarily convoluted. And we didn't even mention this lift stopping at level 12 of a 15-story building! Ah! Cutter formulates a cunning plan for getting rid of the fog. However, it requires going up to the floor where the fog is in order to flush out the fog through the air vents.
Progress. What's the point?
You tell me.
You don't approve of me, do you?
No, I used to think you were really something. But you're not that person.
This could potentially foreshadow Cutter's chat with Jenny later on at the end of this episode. Connor tries to remember Caroline's number.
She's gonna think I'm too cool to call now.
Yeah, that's what she'll think.
foggy?
Bit foggy, yeah.
Connor and Abby try a different tact and enter the air vents, which is surprisingly clean and spacious for what it is, a staple in movie and TV shows. Jenny low-key reveals that Lester asked her to manage appraise the team, and tries to convince Cutter to leave Stephen to fend for himself. However, Cutter would never abandon his friend.
Now you coming? Are you gonna stay down here and be sensible?
Abby resets the thermostat to make it higher. And also dispatches a worm, with little help from Connor. Stephen tries to escape whilst photocopying worms, which makes a change to the usual joke thing that is photocopied in office environments. Also, Abby mounts Connor?
I can't breathe on it.
You're standing on my trunk.
As the fog clears, Cutter and Jenny reunite with Stephen, and the office heats up. All the worms explode simultaneously in one of the more gory parts of the show. Some buckets of chummy-looking slime and lava get thrown on them.
They're not biting, they're burrowing. They're trying to find a new host. Don't let them break the skin.
Stephen yanks off the same lava twice. Cutter cools down the building with the fire sprinklers, probably causing millions worth in damage. Note that Jenny had a lighter. It's revealed in the novel The Lost Island that Jenny is an occasional smoker when stressed.
Claudia, you alright?
Don't call me Claudia! And I'm fine.
The way Cutter and Stephen share a laugh here is quite sweet, showing that their relationship is still strong here. Now, bombshell time. You'll never guess where this level of the building was built. The Anomaly Research Centre. Yes, that's right. They're in the kitchen area right now. This is the hallway. And Terry and Shelley were in the gym area. It's been heavily redressed, so it was either filmed before or after all the scenes at the Ark were filmed. We have never realised this until making this breakdown.
Unbelievable.
Do you ever wonder if what we're doing is right?
This is the first moment where Stephen questions Cutter about the anomalies, possibly just because he's curious, but also because he might have been influenced by Helen earlier. This is another plotline that sadly got dropped after this series. The music playing here is the track Stay With Me, which was used with Helen and Nick in Series 1 Episode 3, and reflects Stephen wanting to stick with Cutter, but also being conflicted against what Helen was telling him. Cutter has reversed his opinion since Series 1, where he was more in favour of revealing the anomalies to the public, but after all the creatures and Claudia disappearing, he's now decided that the anomalies are unsafe for public knowledge. Afterwards, Stephen returns to his apartment, still expecting Helen to be there, but she is gone. When Abby and Connor return to their flat, Caroline returns and gives Connor her number again. If you were watching carefully earlier, you can see that when Abby and Connor were talking, Caroline sneakily hides her phone in the sofa in the background. She likely did this just in case Connor didn't call her, or lost her number, thus successfully infiltrating into their lives, for reasons we'll discover later. Connor didn't even take a shower before hitching with Caroline. Maybe she likes worm goo? You'll notice how Abby and Connor are now fully clothed whilst at home. This change was made due to Hannah Spirit being harassed by the media for being so scantily clad in Series 1. The two leave Abby in her flat looking fittingly upset as Tom Dietz plays, Primeval's go-to somber music piece for Series 2.
Cutter stands outside Jenny's flat, hesitating on approaching the door. Presumably he found her address by looking in the Ark personal files. The reason he hesitates is that he's probably not sure he should do what he's about to do, but at the same time, he wants to tell Jenny the truth. He also has a photo of himself with Claudia in his wallet. I wonder when that was taken.
Okay, here's the thing. Suppose there was another world once, and you were a different person. And suppose there was an accident that happened in the past, which meant that world evolved differently.
It's quite touching how Cutter delivers this, and it shows how tortured he is by this interaction, where he's trying to explain his side of things. Jenny's probably very baffled by this interaction.
You're busy. I'm so sorry.
Okay, how the hell did Helen get this car? Surely a dead woman's license would have expired by now too. Presumably she followed Nick here. Or maybe she's a stalker and found Jenny's address on her own. Because Helen overhears this, she now has the motive for wanting to replicate what happened at the end of Series 1, which is her plan, which ties into Leek's plans.
In closing, episode 2 takes place over half a day, and it's only a short period of time between this and the next episode. Join us next time for the breakdown of episode 3 of Primeval Series 2.
How can you not have fun with a samurai sword chopping up worms? I mean, what more fun can you have?